Hello and welcome to Leaders of Tomorrow, your one-stop platform for anything and everything to do with the entrepreneurial world. I'm Sunanda Jayaseelan. Tonight on the show, we're bringing you a special series on Diwali. What can you, the entrepreneur, look forward to when it comes to consumer sentiment? How should you be reading consumer spending over the past few months? And how should you prepare for a possible uptick coming back into the economy, into spending? All of that being decoded on the panel tonight. Let me then quickly introduce our guests. First up, we have Madan Sabnavis, Chief Economist of Care Ratings, Vivek Gambhir, CEO, Boat, Prashant Bindal, Chief Sales Officer, Lodha. There's a lot of sectors at least have definitely seen the negative impact as far as the uncertainty is concerned, whether it's financial, whether it's over health, and therefore consumer sentiment is taken a hit. Every day there seems to be news about when we could expect the third wave. There are new variants that are being reported every day. What is all of this doing to consumer sentiment?
I personally feel like there hasn't been a better time to launch a brand or start a company than ever before. And our expectation is that over the next 10 years, you will see much more value creation than the previous 20, 30 years that India has seen. Clearly, there are a lot of challenges also. But I do believe that the mood and the sentiment today is very positive. Even in the near term, if you look at the recent surveys, the RBI confidence survey, a lot of the other consumer surveys, all of them are pointing to a much higher uptake in consumer sentiment. We're seeing the highest levels of consumer confidence over the last 12 to 18 months.
Let me talk the other side of demand, if I can call it that, which is the supply side. Now, during the second wave, manufacturing was allowed, but what we saw in a lot of industries, including, I am assuming, real estate and the FMCG and consumer durables industry, is that the workers had gone back to their hometowns. I don't know how many of them perhaps, came back to their old jobs. My question really is, if we do see this demand coming back in the next 2-3 months or going forward into 22, do you think industry is really ready to be able to match the demand, have the workers, have the supply chains going? Do you think they're ready? And if not, what is your advice for an entrepreneur watching to say, this is perhaps how you should prepare for this demand coming up? Open to all three of you. Prashant, maybe you want to take this first.
I think you have raised a very, very important point, because the key is how do you handle them during the crisis? For example, we were able to hold on to them during the first lockdown and the second lockdown by providing them the basic needs to be fulfilled for the workers, because we have any time more than 30,000 workers working at our various sites. We were able to prevent them from going, although it's for smaller entrepreneurs, it's difficult. But the key is, if you are, remember that even if a third wave comes or a glitch comes, it was not going to be of a very long duration, as we have seen. Have the capacity and have the desire to hold on to that workers for that small bit of time and take care of their basic needs. Because if you are able to do it, then the whole purpose, then the whole cycle, you don't have to start it again. We were really able to hold on to about 60 to 70% of our workforce during that time by providing them the basic needs. And as soon as the time started, the right time started, the construction again started on the right track. And that gave us a lot of breathing space. Hold on to them, take out your, I know it's tough time, but if you can hold on to them for that 1 month, it will help you in the subsequent 6 to 9 months.
Sure. Vivek?
Yeah, I think this is one area which has been a big challenge in the consumer electronics and consumer durables industry, because it's a global supply chain. And the entire China piece has been a very big mess in terms of frequent shutdowns in China because of electricity shortages. As Madan was mentioning, there has been a semiconductor shortage as well. And shipping costs have gone up by 5x over the last 2 or 3 months because of a severe shortage and a supply-demand imbalance on shipping containers as well. And so I think this will continue to be a challenge. Fortunately, we've been able to navigate this quite well, given our scale and the long-term relationships we have with suppliers. But this is one area where entrepreneurs will have to be extremely cautious about. My suggestion is to plan in advance, wherever possible, keep on building some excess inventory. Most of us became very used to running very lean supply chain cycles, but we will have to start building in more contingency measures as well. And the other big learning here is I think Make in India actually assumes even greater importance and urgency because of the significant exposure and dependence this sector has as far as China manufacturing is concerned. And we are definitely putting a lot of plans in place to make it our biggest priority next year.
Just to supplement what Prashant and Vivek have said, I think we at CARE, we keep carrying out these surveys regularly with SMEs. And the picture which we get is that labor is always a problem. So I think for the larger companies, you see returning of labor is not that kind of an issue as much as it's for SMEs. I think they have been handicapped because of these two waves, two kinds of lockdowns, which has affected them. And today, actually, when even I had said that the service sector is going to do very well, but you talk to restaurant owners or you even talk to the mall people who are working in the mall, I think they're having a problem in terms of labor. So I think that's going to be one of the bigger challenges. And while it's, I think what Prashant was saying is that people have to hold on to labor, but holding power is very much limited when you're an SME. I think for larger companies, they have the wherewithal, they can probably take on the loss if there's no work going on. But practically speaking, I think when you're talking of the SMEs, I think they do have a problem. So I think in this recovery process, as the pace picks up, as you raised this issue on the supply side, I think labor could be a kind of a speed breaker which could come in the way of the SMEs.
Vivek, you were saying learnings. So I want us to perhaps pause at this point, even as we're looking forward, to sort of look back. And if you could talk to our entrepreneurs about the biggest learnings that you as a company, you as an organization, you as an individual leading this organization have had during the pandemic, how you perhaps innovated to ensure that you continued reaching out to your consumers. And based on that, your advice for someone watching today's panel. Vivek, to you first, Prashant, if you could take this question as well.
Yeah, clearly things have been in a rapid amount of flux. And so it's very important to have plan A, plan B, and plan C because you just don't know which direction the winds will head towards. The second thing is keep enough in your arsenal. I think it's important to have enough working capital, for instance, to be able to buy sufficient amount of inventory in advance. And then the third thing is moments like this cause an extraordinary amount of agility and hustle. I think the opportunities are tremendous. We are seeing some very exciting inflection points, whether it's the emergence of online, whether it's growth in tier 3 or tier 4. But it's very important for businesses to have the flexibility to really pivot their business models in the direction where they are seeing demand.
I think what Vivek has said is absolutely right. I think my first advice would be the first foremost advice is don't panic. If that's the first principle. And be agile to change the business model. Imagine our state, what was our model? The consumers will come to the site, we will meet them, we will present them the product, we will show them the product, and then they will buy it. Imagine if they can't even come to the site, what will happen? The whole business model collapsed. Imagine for 10 years we had worked on, there were thousands and thousands of clients coming to our various sites, and suddenly everything collapsed. And we had to start from the scratch. And the whole purpose that we started was that okay, if they cannot come to us, we will go to them. And then, and you start connecting them via the Google Meet, like we are meeting today. It was unheard of. Earlier economic time, we were brought to a hotel and a panel interview done. We had never heard of doing it in a Google Meet. And we started doing with our consumer the first time, both our own teams as well as the consumers, both were petrified of what is happening. He said, how can we buy a house while watching on a computer? But look, it changed the complete way the whole consumer behavior changed. Our own team changed. And imagine the biggest change that happened was, I think, the emergence of women as consumers, seriously. Because when you are interacting with them and talking to them for hours, because when you can interact them on the phone or via Google Meet, then every part of the family gets involved. And when every element is being discussed, then it is not only the pricing that is getting discussed. In an affordable segment, especially the male carries the economics part. But there are a lot of aesthetics to be discussed in a product. And that is where women are much, much superior to men. And when that discussion starts, then that consumer behavior completely changes. In fact, we had to change our whole thought process. Now over 67% to be precise, the closing managers are women. Because we realize that it is the women who are finally calling the shots in identifying, finally closing the aesthetics, the behavior. The pricing continues to be important, but it is not the be all and end all. It has gone beyond the Excel sheet. Give us the lowest price, lowest per square feet, lowest TCO. What are the amenities? Is there a school? What kind of a deck or balcony is there? What kind of amenities are there? All these discussions, what kind of a design is there? In this, the women are playing a very critical role. So the model has changed, the behavior has changed, our own sales structure has changed. So be prepared for all these changes because there are so many changes are going to happen. The key is don't panic. Look at what are the emerging consumer behavior emerging and plan it accordingly. And I think if we are able to understand the consumer behavior properly and align our business models accordingly, then successes are there to be had. And I think all these disruptions give us the opportunity for future.
Let's slip into a short break on that note. We'll continue this discussion though on the other side. Back in just a moment to stay tuned. If you had one thing that you would like to see either for your sector or for in the industry as a whole, what would you perhaps think is most crucial for the government to be commenting on in the next union budget?
Frankly saying, my only request would be just don't bring any change. It's whatever we are doing. I think there is that is the only thing worries us. There are too many policies, too many GST rates that change. Too many things change very frequently. Just keep continuing doing with whatever is happening. Don't disrupt it when things are okay.
Welcome back with us here on Leaders of Tomorrow. This is our Diwali special. I do want to talk about spending power, and according to a Pew Research Center, data that they've put out, this was more true of FY 2021. I'm just trying to get a sense, whether going forward, perhaps we could see something similar. The pandemic resulting in a sharp fall in the middle class, and there's been a rise in poverty levels in India. Growth in savings falling sharply from 21% of GDP to 8.2% in FY 2021. That's the third quarter. Also, personal disposable incomes have declined for the first three consecutive quarters, had declined rather. Has there been a correction in that? I just want to get your comments to this.
No, it's a very difficult question to answer because I think it all goes back to the controversy we have over employment. And we always have two sets of conflicting data points. We have one from the EPFO and we have one from CMI. They don't always say the same things. But I think finally the proof will come out whether in terms of the spending power. So I always believe that in case employment is increasing, if jobs are being created, people have more income to spend, they will definitely come out and spend the money. So I think one of the reasons why the Indian economy or other consumerism did not really pick up even before the pandemic struck was essentially because of the absence of adequate job creation. So in case, I don't think that the situation has actually improved significantly because at least if I look at the corporate sector, again, as care ratings, we do regular studies on the organized sector, of course. We've seen that the growth in employment, for example, last year was actually negative. The only positive sectors were more in the FMCG and the services sectors. I think and the drugs and pharma, I think 3-4 sectors showed positive growth. Otherwise, it's been negative growth. And even in the best of times, we've been growing at something like 4%. So if I go back to 1920, the growth in employment was around 2%. I don't know if things have really improved dramatically in the current year. So I think finally, in terms of, I think we're all been discussing demand. So if people start spending more money in the next couple of months, it definitely means that jobs are being created. And just one last point, I think going back to what message I need to give. I think we are talking of adaptability. I think that's a very good lesson which we have learned. But the problem is that something like Lodha, you're in a position where you can adapt. But can the small SME actually know that he's supposed to adapt? I think that's a big question. How do you communicate to them that when you have a third wave, you're supposed to do certain things? So I think there is a major gap which is there, which I think has to be filled up by the chambers of commerce, state governments. I think that's the only way in which the MSMEs can rise. But even if I look at the first quarter results, the corporate results, again, something which we keep keep analyzing regularly, the smaller companies have been battered in the first quarter of this year, whereas the larger companies have actually done well. You have top line growth, you have your profits growing, but the moment I look at the so-called micro and small sector, they have not really done well. So I think this message needs to be passed on to all of them. All of them should be watching this program so that they're able to pick up these tips from us. But I think that's the essential thing which is required, adaptability, and how do you actually communicate this to the MSMEs?
Absolute last question then as we wind down today's panel. And since you were talking about what you would like to see, Madan, I want to talk about a look ahead to the budget. We're a few months away, but since we have the three of you with us, if you had one thing that you would like to see either for your sector or for in the industry as a whole, what would you perhaps think is most crucial for the government to be commenting on in the next union budget? Maybe I'll come to you first, Prashant.
I think the most important is consistency of policy. So, frankly saying, my only request would be just don't bring any change. It's whatever we are doing. I think there is that is the only thing worries us. There are too many policies, too many GST rates that change. Too many things change very frequently. Just keep continuing doing with whatever is happening. Don't disrupt it when things are okay. That's my only request. In terms of, we have got a very good structure in terms of very low loan mortgages rate are at the lowest level. Just continue it because the industry has after a long time got into momentum. Just continue to support the industry. That's my only request.
Vivek?
Yeah, in line with the Honorable Prime Minister's vision of Atmanirbhar Bharat, Make in India is a critical priority for this sector. Unfortunately, in the last budget, one of the changes has led to an inverted duty structure where it is more expensive to import components than finished goods. So one of the key asks from this sector is to actually remove this inverted duty structure to create the right incentives for this sector to now really take Make in India as the single most important priority for us.
Madan, anything you want to add?
Just one thing, I think practically speaking, I think the government will be on the fiscal path. So they will be working on reducing the level of fiscal deficit. But I think what I would like to see is a higher amount of capital expenditure. And I say so because investment rate in the country is falling and private sector investment normally follows government expenditure. So if the government is able to increase its capital expenditure, especially in infrastructure, I think that will be very beneficial for the economy.
All right, gentlemen. Thank you so much for your time here on the Leaders of Tomorrow.
Thank you.
Thank you.
That concludes then tonight's panel discussion talking about consumer spends, consumption patterns, sectors that have been affected and what possibly you could look forward to in the new year. If you have any feedback, as always, we're all ears. Contact details coming up on your screens as we speak. For tonight, it's a wrap. Thanks for watching. Have a good night.